What's up, everybody? Jensen Cummings here. Thank you for tuning in. Could not be more excited this morning. This is the 100th episode of Best Served Live. We're on location for the first time at Safta Restaurant, Alon Shaya's outpost in Denver, Colorado. And we're going to be talking to multiple guests today. This is exciting for us because we get an opportunity to be face-to-face for the first time with a little distance, as well as getting Chef Edward Lee on. We got Garrett Oliver coming on. We got Silvia Hernandez, Debbie Gold, and we're going to start out with Liliana Meyers, the head pastry chef of Safta. Please take some time to share this, tag all of your Unsung hospitality heroes. It's going to be a fun day. Appreciate you. Enjoy the show. All right, everyone. First off, we have Liliana Meyers, who is the head pastry chef at Safta Restaurant. Liliana, thank you for being our 100th episode of the show.
Oh my God, it's my pleasure. It's so happy to do it.
Yes, so give us a little bit of what Safta is all about. Let everyone know kind of the restaurant, the mission, how long you guys have been here, a little background.
Yeah, so we're a modern Israeli restaurant. We're located in Rhino in Denver. We've been open for just going on 2 years now. It'll be our anniversary in about a month. So it's pretty exciting. We have two different restaurants. We have one in New Orleans as well as here in Denver. Alon Shaya is the one who's kind of our chef behind all of our restaurants. He started Pomegranate Hospitality about 2.5 years ago with a really big core mission of making sure that, we're really accommodating to everyone who works here, that there's no harassment of any form at the restaurant, that we're really great at supporting our cooks and our family here at Safta. We try to make sure education is a really big proponent of what we're doing.
Love it.
Try to use a lot of local farms and just, really be community leaders around here.
That's really great. And talk about the food style a little bit. You said modern Israeli, kind of how does that play out on the menu?
So a lot of things, obviously hummus is like our big mainstay. Hummus and pita are, what we're really known for, which is great. Yeah. And then we do a lot of other different dishes based off the Jewish diaspora throughout Europe and Israel. So it's not only Israeli food. You'll see some some European things in there as well. So Alon's background is that he was born in Israel and his mother is Bulgarian. So we have a lot of Bulgarian things on the menu. Myself is that I was from New York. And so I have a lot of New York Jewish background in me. So I do a lot of things with that kind of a style to it, which is Israeli as well. We actually got to go to Israel last year on a beautiful trip just to kind of learn.
For the team?
For the team.
Yes.
For all the management team. And I don't think I've ever eaten that much food in my whole entire life. But it was so great. All I did was eat nap.
That sounds like an amazing life in general, but definitely for a single trip. All right, for everybody watching, I want to give you guys a little bit of context for why we're starting off the show and why there's a fire truck going by. Why we're starting off the show with Liliana, because this show has been really built on good people connecting good people. And so when we were talking about doing the 100th episode, we were and restaurants were opening back up. We want to go out and support a local restaurant. So I did a call out on social media, said, what restaurants are out there that'd be great for us to team up with for our 100th episode? Liliana reached out and I was like, this is perfect. And the serendipity of all this, I absolutely love, because Liliana's story is an amazing story. And we want to always introduce ourselves to new people we had never met before. Mm-hmm. So this is an opportunity for me to kind of play into the ethos of introducing ourselves to new humans in hospitality. And then we also have Chef Edward Lee coming up, who started the LEE Initiative. Safta is the LEE Initiative restaurant in Denver. And I literally pull into the parking lot and there is a LEE Initiative branded Audi. I was like, the serendipity is strong today. Yeah. So I want to give people that background. This is why it's so important for me to start out the show here with you. Let's give people a little bit of your background. Take us back. Where are you from originally? When did you catch the hospitality restaurant chef bug?
Yeah. So I grew up in New York on Long Island. I originally went to school for chemical engineering and pre-med, and I really didn't like that, which wasn't something that I really wanted.
From pre-med to grinding it out in the kitchen.
Yeah.
I love it.
So I this is the only thing I really wanted to do. And I had one family friend who basically suggested, they were like, you live right outside of New York. What if you don't try to go to culinary school and you just try to get a job? So I sent about 50 or so resumes out to I don't know, I picked some number ends I got. I was like, as long as you got over this number, I'll send you a resume. And I went around the city all day and dropped off resumes, interviewed people. And I got really lucky and I got hired at Per Se at Bouchon Bakery.
Right out of the gate.
Yeah, I kind of like call them all the time, and at the worst times too. I'd call it like 7:00 at night and be like, "Is the chef there? I want to know if I got a job."
Wow.
It was horrible. I didn't even know at the time that was like such a rookie horrible mistake.
So you go from pre-med to one of 14 3 Michelin star restaurants in the entire country.
Yeah.
Makes total sense to me. Clearly that. Okay, so you got the bug in a big way and went out to that level.
Mm-hmm.
Now I want to do what we always do. We want to talk about the people that have impacted our lives and careers. Are there some early mentors, maybe at Per Se? Did you work with Joshua Schwartz?
I worked with, I can't remember his name right now. It wasn't Joshua Schwartz, so
Oh.
this was like 13 years ago. But I actually got to work at Danielle and Barbalud and open that restaurant. And I got to work with Garrett Oliver, who is the pastry chef at Danielle now. And she is amazing. She was like one of my biggest mentors. She taught me almost everything.
It's amazing.
I got to work with her for about 2 years before another chef there actually hooked me up with a job in France. And she was great. I also got to work with Elma Lopez when I got back from France, who now owns a restaurant in Portland, Maine with her husband, Damien. And she was really awesome too. She was really great teaching me a lot of things, as well as a lot of things about, I'm Colombian. I was born there, but I was adopted. So I don't really know too much about the food there. And she was Venezuelan. So she made it like her mission to like teach me how to cook South American food and like really just try to get more of that mentality. And it was really like invaluable in so many ways that like I just never knew that part of my culture.
Okay, now I want to connect those dots because New York, right? You have that background. Then you're doing Israeli food or modern Israeli food. And then you also have the Colombian background. Pastry, very much rooted in French, right? How are you navigating all of that? You know, it seems like it can be a challenge. I'm guessing you take it as an opportunity to be able to kind of connect the dots for you because it's your personal experience and history.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I love learning different cuisines. I'm very, I love looking things up. Like you should see The Office. It's full of like cookbooks that I've personally bought and everyone hates
When
it.
you were waiting to get on, you were literally at a table around the corner reading a book, just nose down in the book. So I believe that 100%. It's in you.
So it's really great. I like to take the initiative and just kind of learn different things, as well as just to find like a lot of recipes that I love to use are like my grandmother's recipes.
That's great.
And I think
aren't those the best recipes?
I mean, they're the best.
There always are.
And my great grandmother owned actually a kosher catering business in Nebraska, which is where my mom's side of the family's from. And so I have all these like recipes that are in huge quantities already, and like blintzes for like 500 people and stuff.
And what's it? Runza?
Runza.
Oh yeah. Look that up, people. Runza. It's a Midwestern classic.
Yeah, I make that drive a lot down to Omaha.
Understood.
But it's really great to be able to use those different things and like some different like pans and tart molds that I have from her from way back when, and I like that I actually get to use them now. Rather than sit in like a basement somewhere in storage. It's really nice to be able to pull them out and get to do those things that my great grandmother used to.
So important. I think it's interesting. I've heard why we can never cook. My mother's a great cook. Why we can never cook as well as our mothers and grandmothers is the secret recipe is in their hands. Yeah. Right? There's like the touch of the food always just makes it taste better. It's that love secret ingredient where really it's the touch of it, which I think is super important and interesting. Anybody that we need to know about, we're all about the shout outs here. We want to learn about more unsung hospitality heroes. Anybody else you've worked out with throughout your career that just you knew the day you showed up that they were working, you were going to have a great shift, or specifically here, any of those people that we just need to be introduced to?
Yeah. So there was, I don't know if she's still there anymore, but when I was the pastry chef at Frasca Food and Wine in Boulder, we had this amazing dishwasher. Her name was Lupe. Her husband worked there too. She was just the kindest person ever. And she would make this pozole and bring it in. You could like buy it. Oh my God. I have like dreams about this pozole. It was so good.
We're going to track down this pozole. We're doing a follow-up episode where you and I and Lupe.
Too.
Oh yeah.
It's
amazing.
The best. But she was just always such a like kind-hearted person. And would just, she was just great to be around. And you knew that, everything would get done and it would be a great day if she was there. And it was just such a nice touch.
I want Lupe like on the show. I want everybody like that on the show. I want people to understand that Alon Shaya and Chef Edward Lee, Garrett Oliver, Debbie Gold, like people that are going to be on this show, they have big name brands. Still, to them, when I ask them who the most important person in the restaurant is, they all say the dishwasher. Because they know 100%. It's the most important person.
It's the first person I feed.
It's always the person that I fed too. Like I always told whoever was the chef on duty, like you cook a meal for the dishwasher and not some leftover fish that got overcooked. Like the best that you can do because they're the most important person in the building. So I'm really, really grateful. Lupe, now I know Lupe. And literally, when you're talking about the pozole and the tamales and the kindness, like I've never met Lupe, yet I know Lupe so well because we're surrounded by them. And I really want people to know that. Anybody here at Safta that you're just really lucky to work with?
Yeah, I mean, actually our GM, Jen, she just started like maybe a few weeks before COVID went down.
Wow.
Which is kind of crazy. And she has been such a rock star. I mean, just there all the time and great. I mean, we've had not the best luck with GMs in the past, but she's been just amazing. And it's been such a pleasure to work with her and to know that there are certain things I don't have to worry about as much anymore because like it's handled and it's handled great. And like, it's really awesome to, you know, find those people who really want to work and bring out the best in a place as much as you do.
The trust and confidence is key. Liliana, thank you so much for taking some time. Thank you for hosting us.
Of course, it's my pleasure.
We're going to stop talking now, but we're about to eat this. We appreciate everybody. This is our 100th episode, kicking off with a bang. Beautiful setting, great conversation. We got grandmas, we got Lupe, we got pozole, we got hummus. Really grateful for the opportunity, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. What's your dessert?
Oh, so this is a baklava. I got some strawberries from Isabel Farm yesterday. So it's pistachio baklava and a strawberry and yogurt pudding on the bottom, some poached rhubarb and fresh strawberries. It's really yummy.
I like everything that you just said, like so much. And we're back with Chef Edward Lee of the LEE Initiative, 610 Magnolia. You've probably seen him on Mind of a Chef. Louisville, Kentucky in the house. Edward, thanks for taking some time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right. So I want to take people back a little bit, maybe a couple of nuggets from early on. Ed Lee, when did you catch the hospitality, the chef, the restaurant bug? Take us back to that time.
Oh, you mean like when I was a kid?
Yeah.
That was, gosh, I was young. I don't know, man. I would say that I have always wanted to be a chef. I remember being like a 10-year-old and, you know, wanting to cook in the kitchen. And I told my parents I was going to be a chef and they said, that's fine. You're crazy. Go back to school. And
they said, you need to get a real job.
They said, you need to get a real job and be an accountant or a dentist. And
what do they say now? They still think you should have been an accountant?
They're actually completely shocked that I made it, which gives me a lot of confidence. They had a lot of confidence in me. But yeah, they're very happy. But they're completely flabbergasted. They quite don't know what I actually do for a living. Because they're like, you're home a lot, or you're always traveling. I'm like, it's different now. It's different. But anyway.
Yeah. So 610 Magnolia, that's where I first met you. This has been coming up a lot. There's a lot of intersecting lines between the 2011 Kentucky Derby when we were out there cooking. Tori McPhail's been on the show. Nancy Longo's on next week. You know, Gina Berry and all the work that she's done. And they took us around and we went to 610. And it was really an amazing meal, first of all. But I was really fascinated in the way that you've kind of taken contemporary cuisine, a lot of the haute cuisine and things that we came up on, thinking about things like fermentation, which we're complete fermentation nerds, you and I. That's a whole other show. And weaving those things in very seamlessly. Talk about the ethos, the dynamics at play, and kind of when you think about food in that context.
Yeah, I mean, listen, food for me is always about striking a balance. You know, we're not an extremist restaurant, and by that I mean I never take one concept and push it to its like, you know, 1000th degree. Sure. I really love taking bits and pieces of, it's like solving a puzzle. I love taking bits and pieces of things, something new, something old, something fermented, but something raw. And just kind of weaving it together and creating a food that's very expressive of who I am, and trying to tell a story on a plate. I always tell people, like, I'm Korean, but I don't cook Korean food. I live in the South, but I don't cook Southern food. Like I take elements from each of those and create something that's very personal to me. But I'm not a traditionalist, you know, like I'm never going to make like a straight pasta dish. I'm never going to make like, a bulgogi dish like that's traditional. I'm always going to take concepts and kind of just, bend them to suit my needs.
The storytelling, talk about that aspect, because that's one of the things I've been very struck with, is that you do have a complex narrative, a personal narrative and a culinary narrative, yet you've done a really good job through some of the different, TV shows and documentaries and just your general storytelling through your concepts of telling that story. Where and when does it work? Where and when do you see a challenge in being able to kind of express that?
Well, it's always a challenge. I mean, people don't realize, like, I probably make 6 horrible dishes for one that actually works and lands on a menu.
Yes.
Like, we're always experimenting. People are like, oh my God, everything you make's delicious. And I'm like, yeah, because the ones that are terrible, I don't serve it. So you don't know it.
It was hard work getting here.
Yeah, but we experiment with dishes all the time, and actually more often than not, they don't make it on a menu. And I think that's what happens when you try and tell a story. Like it's just, I don't know, it's like writing a story, right? Like, not every sentence is going to make it onto that final cut. And that's good. Like, we need to sort of, there's a process. And so that's fun for me. That's fun. We take all our world's experiences, we take all of our learning, and then we try and create something new and different, that feels Southern, feels Asian, feels like New York, like where I came from, feels modern, but also feels like we're touching on something old, and just trying to make something unique out of that. And it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
But that's, that's what gets us out of bed in the morning. That's what excites us.
Yeah, it always feels human. That's the thing that I think is most important. It always feels human, and the human expression and the human journey is complex, a lot of ups and downs. And so on that human factor, we had Lindsay Ofsasik on the show, Thomas Bolton from Maker's Mark, the work that's happening with the LEE Initiative, the pivot to feeding people across the country, Safta Restaurant, your Denver outpost, Jose Salazar, Ming Tsai have both been on the show, amazing chefs. So talk about the LEE Initiative in this moment, the importance and the ability to scale and have such massive impact.
Yeah, so
quickly.
When restaurants shut down March 15th, we opened up a relief kitchen here in Louisville, Kentucky on March 16th. And we fed, that first night we fed about 200 people. The second night we fed like 250. And the third night we fed like 450. And we quickly realized, like, this was a crisis, that there was a lot of restaurant workers that were suddenly out of work, without pay, without a support, without a safety net, and that it's a huge segment of society that works in restaurants that relies on a restaurant paycheck. And so we just realized, like, this is not a Louisville problem, it's a nationwide problem. And we luckily had the support of Maker's Mark, who is our partner anyway in our nonprofit. And they quickly came on board and said, here's some seed money, can you expand this? And we did, and Lindsay and I did not sleep for 2 weeks. And we went from 1 relief kitchen to 19 in about 2.5 weeks.
Have you slept since?
Yeah, we've got some sleep since. We're now in phase 2 of the LEE Initiative, which is our attempt to financially boost farms and restaurants as they try and reopen now. So a lot of restaurants are trying to reopen, and their cash reserves are really low. And whereas you're not seeing a lot of restaurant closings right now because everyone's trying to make it, you're going to see a lot of casualties come the end of summer. And so what we're trying to do is create a food supply chain and a support system where farms can deliver direct to restaurants for free and give them products, so that they have some financial relief in trying to reopen. So that's our phase 2 that we're doing, and we're going to be in 16 cities with that one. So we're just, it's just, I don't know, it's what we're doing. This is so unprecedented. This is so insane. And I couldn't have survived this past 3 months not doing this work, because I just cannot sit on my hands and watch all this tragedy happen. And this work has been so gratifying, and it's really kept me sane throughout this whole process.
Yeah, real quick, I want you to touch on your perspective now, thinking about food even more differently, in the fact that you're just trying to, the purest form of hospitality, just trying to feed people, to nurture them. I'm very interested in that.
Yeah, it puts everything in perspective, right? Like we obsess over the flavor of a sauce, and all of a sudden this puts it in perspective, and people are happy, they're content to have food, and it's necessary, and food is not just it's not just like an Instagram post, right? Like food is hope, food is food is meaning that you care. Food gives people a sense of belonging. It's huge. It's really, really massive. And so for us, this process has made all of us, my entire staff has been working at the Relief Kitchen, and we've grown closer together. We've realized that our mission is bigger than just making fancy food. We just closed one of my restaurants and turned it into a permanent relief kitchen, to help out those in neighborhoods in Louisville that need it. I have realized, and many of my staff as well, that the idea of giving and charity, and the idea of sharing wealth is going to be a lifelong mission now. It's not just something that you do during COVID. It's something that we are going to plan for, set aside a budget for, and make sure it's always available so we can do that.
Okay, well, let's take these last 30 seconds. This is your Oscar, James Beard Award winning thank you speech, where you got to rattle off all the people that have had an impact, and you're going to forget somebody's name, but give us some of the humans that have been supporting this work, that are behind the scenes, that are actually in the trenches making it happen for you.
I do it all myself. No.
I knew
It's all me. No, so my co-founder and director of the LEE Initiative is Lindsay Osasek, who is a human tour de force, and I could not do this without her. I mean, she's really behind the scenes running the whole show, and she really makes it all happen every day. Even right now, I just got off the phone with her, and she's making deliveries and doing phone calls and raising money, and it's crazy. Kevin Ashworth is my executive chef, who's been out of work for 3 months, just like me. And he's been behind the scenes, running and, getting deliveries and making stuff happen, and putting out fires and emergencies. And those two have been so integral in what we've been doing. Other chefs, James Garst, who's been running the Relief Kitchen, Kelsey, Mara, my whole staff, my entire team. And then, there's Dare to Care, who's been so generous with their food. Obviously, Maker's Mark has been such a huge financial support for us. We could not do any of this without the support of Maker's Mark. And in smaller companies like PNC Bank, Tabasco, Whole Foods. There have been so many people that have outreach to us. And then all the chef partners. I mean, we have 19 chef partners all around the country, and every single one has gone above and beyond the call of action, and really stepped up, raised money, did incredible things, and made sure that we looked good, and we were feeding as many people and more. We fed almost 350,000 people throughout this crisis, and I couldn't have done that without them. So shout out to all of them, and as well as my family for putting up with me for the past 3 months, and all the craziness that I've had to bring home every day.
Yeah, those are the truest unsung hospitality heroes, as we call them. Yeah. You can count on us at Best Served Podcast. We are going to get all 19 of those chefs on the show, because I think it's important. We'd love to get any of the farmers involved on a show. I think the mission is clearly not just for now. It is the bedrock of what's going to be next in our industry. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Chef Edward Lee, thank you so much for taking some time for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
Let's welcome in Garrett Oliver. the legend himself, brewmaster of the Brooklyn Brewery, a craft beer icon for sure. We're going to talk a little bit about beer and food, something that has been very much at the forefront of Garrett's work for a long time, was very formative for me in my early chef career. Garrett, thank you so much for taking some time.
You are very welcome. Great to be here.
All right, let's take people back. We like the origin stories, the backstory a little bit. Why and when and where did you get into this crazy thing called craft beer?
Well, my origin story goes back further than most. As I like to tell the kids, I'm 400 years old and I've always been here. So I started, into beer, in 1983. I moved to London. I was stage managing rock bands, as a job, which is something that I had done before when I was at university. I ran a concert hall, but on the side, my friends were taking me to the pub. And at the pub, I discovered this stuff called beer. Now,
a proper pint of beer, huh? That's where it started.
I had thought that I had been drinking beer for the past 4 years at college. And that I knew what beer was, which was a thin, yellow, fizzy liquid with hopefully almost no flavor. And then there was Guinness, which I thought of as almost a separate entity from beer. And, we rarely saw that, when I was living in Boston. And so when I got to England and they had the cask conditioned beer, on the hand pump in the pub, and each one tasted different, and each particular brewery had different qualities to it. It just completely blew my mind, and I fell in love with this. And then I went traveling from there all over Europe, the country that was then Czechoslovakia. I went to Belgium, I went to Germany, I got an Interrail pass, and I spent a month on the road in Europe and went to, all these European countries, and each one's with different types of beer. And then eventually, after a year or so, I moved back to the United States. And I went to the bar and they said, Bud, Bud Light, Miller, Miller Light, Coors, Coors Light, Heineken. And I said, oh no. So I decided that I couldn't take this. I couldn't live this way anymore, eating and drinking garbage.
Yeah.
And so I changed my life from a culinary point of view, and I changed my life from a drinking point of view. And, that latter involved starting to brew at home. I was not interested at the time in actually making beer. What I was interested in was having the beer. And the only way to get the beer was to make it yourself.
So necessity is the mother of all invention, right? You had a need and now a compulsion to have good beer. In the mid 80s, that wasn't really existing. So then so you're home brewing. When does it turn into a profession? What's the first foray into being a professional brewer?
Well, shorten the story considerably, but I was helping run a group called the New York City Homebrewers Guild. Through them and ourselves, I knew the brewmaster of a place called Manhattan Brewing Company, which had been started in 1984. And so he had been the head brewer, the brewmaster there had been the head brewer for Sam Smith's in England. And I was at the brewery and he told me that his assistant was leaving, and I practically grabbed him by the collar and said, I want that job. And so a few weeks later, I started as an apprentice. That was 1989. And a couple of years after that, I became the head brewer there when he moved to California. And then about a year and a half later, I went to Brooklyn Brewery. So that was 94. And I've been at Brooklyn Brewery for 26 years.
26 years. And let's talk about Brooklyn Brewery just for a moment. It really blazed the trail in a lot of ways for you, just beyond the beer, just creating culture within the four walls, so to speak, of Brooklyn Brewery, but at large in the craft beer community, which was not a thing. Now it's palpable everywhere you go. Here in Denver, in Brooklyn, so many other places, the craft beer community actually means something. For you at the forefront of that, what does it look like and feel like to have so many humans now rallying around being part of the craft beer community?
Yeah, I think it's great. It's gotten to the point where it's no longer our little club where you go in there and you recognize everybody. But I think in a certain way that's great. It can be overwhelming and confusing at times. We were the first brewery to do so many things. I mean, we were the first brewery in the world to do collaborations. Collaborations was invented by me and Brooklyn Brewery. Nobody else had done any before.
Who was the first collaboration?
They are now with the first one. It was with Breakspear Brewery, which is now gone. They ripped the brewery down to sell the land off for expensive condos, even though the brewery itself was very profitable. And so we've seen things like that happen over the years. But more importantly, collaboration has become part of a worldwide craft beer culture that fortunately I still have the opportunity to play in on a regular basis. So I have collaborations going on now. I was doing collaborations in China in October before coronavirus hit. There's constantly stuff going on.
Collaboration in this moment of coronavirus, COVID, has been important because now we're thinking about everything very differently. We're thinking about the way that we interact with each other on such a simple, fundamental, human way. Are you thinking about beer differently? Are you tripling down potentially on collaboration because it's going to be all about like our collective versus kind of our individual brands and our beers being what distinguishes us? Has that challenged you, any notions, or again, had you maybe double down, triple down, quadruple down on collaboration being kind of the core of where you started and where you've been pushing the industry for years and years?
Well, I had been over the last, couple of years anyway. There was a period when I kind of walked away from collaborations because it got to the point where everybody was doing it and it seemed performative in some way. It was kind of like an Instagram thing where everybody's going to brew the next hazy IPA that tastes exactly the same as the last hazy IPA. And all these bros are going to stand together on the platform in the brewery and say, hey, man, I'm here with my bros. And we're all, and we all have beards and we're all this and we're all that. And we're brewing the same beer. I was like, I'm not interested in this. So I'm continuing the way that I have. I want each collaboration we do to actually mean something. And in our collaborations, we've invented so many things, and I want to make sure that keeps going. So there are all kinds of projects that have been underway, and as the current social turmoil has ratcheted up, and as coronavirus has changed life for all of us, there have been new initiatives that grow further out of that. So this is all, I think, for everybody an evolving situation, but I just want to make sure that as we do all of these things, that our core principles are still expressed through everything that we do.
I want to talk about the brewer's table for a moment and just thinking about beer and food, and not beer and food being a thing that you do at a fancy high-end dinner, but the idea of connecting people through experience, not just the ones that are on the end consumer side of it, but also connecting brewers and chef. It's been very pivotal to me, very seminal in my life of when I read that book and understanding that food and wine absolutely has a place, yet beer and food also has a place at the table. I'm thinking about that a lot as we talk to a lot of chefs and thinking about what's going to be on the table, thinking about the concepts of it's not what's on the plate, but who gets it to the plate. It's not what's in the glass, but who gets it to the glass. Where's your mind at right now when you're thinking about the power of sitting down and having beer and food, breaking bread, having a drink together, kind of that dynamic that you laid an amazing groundwork for so many years ago and continue to do? But talk about the power that beer and food can have together at the table.
Well, I mean, the fact of the matter is, what I wrote Brewmaster's Table as a book that I intended to be something that if you read it and you understood and paid a little bit of attention to what it said, what I was going to give you on the other side of that book was a slightly better life, period. And I kind of feel like that's something, whether it's like you teach somebody about fermented sauces, like you never had fish sauce before, and now fish sauce is in your kitchen, your life gets slightly better. Somebody teaches you about jazz. Hey, listen to this Coltrane record, and you had never really heard jazzed before, and then you have that for the rest of your life, and you have a better life. That's the way I think about craft beer. It's not a thing that like you have to study or whatever else, but if you know a little bit and you think about it a little bit, your life just gets a little bit better every day. And that really is the idea behind Brewmaster's Table. And whether it is doing something with a Thomas Keller, or it's something that we're doing at a neighborhood restaurant, it's all really part of the same thing. And it's a thing that I want to bring not only to the communities that have already discovered it, but to a lot of communities that have yet to discover it. Because anything that can give you a better day every day for the rest of your life for like really almost no money is a thing that I think that we all want to know about. And I love wine. Like I have like 70, 80 bottles of wine in the house right now. I know a lot about wine. I have conducted wine tastings. I can sit here and talk to you about Riesling varietal character for an hour. But if you're talking about day-to-day enjoyment with food, et cetera, wine is a pretty limited drink. And I kind of find that that beer is a much less limited drink. It's much more culinary. And I don't think it's like an argument. It is simply factual because beer has a recipe and I can spice it. I've done so many wine versus beer with cheese and wine versus beer with food against sommeliers in front of an audience. And there's two kinds of sommeliers, the kinds that know they're going to lose and the kinds that don't know they're going to lose. but they all lose. And the thing is, it's a trick question. They can't win.
Yes.
It's really like not possible. Like you have one gun and I have all of these weapons. And like there's no way you're never going to make it through. So on a day-to-day basis for the consumer, this is just a thing you want to know, period. It's a thing you want to know.
I think it's great. All right. These last maybe 30 seconds, we'd love to hear some of the humans at Brooklyn Brewery that you're just so lucky to work with, to be surrounded by. Who are some of the people that when you show up to work, you really hope that they're there those days? We'd love to be introduced to some of the people that are out there, I'm sure, hustling, struggling, making things happen in this moment. Who are some of those people for you?
Well, at the brewery today, Al Duval, who's been on the scene about as long as I have, which is a long, long time. We're preparing, tomorrow we're going to can a beer, which is a collaboration between us and the Weldworks Brewery out in Greeley.
Oh yeah, Neil and those guys.
Yep. So they came out and we're brewing a beer we're canning a beer called Boundary Spell tomorrow, which is going to benefit the Service Workers Coalition, which is a mutual aid society between various people who worked as service workers and behind the scenes, back of the house in the restaurant trade. We got Steve Bartel over there today, our man Ayad Asha in the house, making stuff happening. We have a great team. And, I think that the best days of Brooklyn Brewery are definitely yet to come. We've done our most interesting stuff ever in the past 5 years. I mean, we've made much better, more interesting beers than we ever did. And I think that, we're slowly becoming the kind of brewery that we've wanted to be. I heard somebody say once that the true meaning of success is becoming the person that you always claim to be in public. And
perfect.
And I think that we can barely see that person from where we are, but at least we're getting closer. And that's what life's about.
What a great way to end this segment. Amazing. Garrett, I'm grateful for the relationship that we have, the things that we've done in the past, the Brewmaster's Table. I think I misspoke, said Brewer's Table. The Brewmaster's Table really changed a lot for me. And to your point, the best is yet to come. Garrett Oliver, thank you so much for being on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Be
Cheers.
well.
And on we go in the 100th episode of Best Served Live. Our next guest is Sylvia Hernandez with Comal Heritage Food Incubator, as well as La Catrina Grill, all in Denver, Colorado. Sylvia, thank you so much for being on.
No, thank you for inviting me to come here and support the small business.
Yes, we are all about supporting small business at all times, especially in this time. And it was very important for me to have your voice on our 100th episode because we all have very different experiences. We all come from very different backgrounds, yet we're also passionate about the purest form of hospitality, which is feeding other human beings. And I think that that is something that you embody so well. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. Take us back. When, where did you start to get yourself into the kitchen? How did that come about? Give us a little bit of that backstory.
Okay, that was long time ago. Yes, when I was 18, I'm 49. So when I was 18, I was studying a career in Mexico City. I am originally from Mexico City.
Okay.
So I was studying the high school can be here at technical college. I studied a technical career on gastronomy in Mexico City, long time ago, when I was 18. Just, and believe it or not, I was going more like for administration area, not like a practice cooking.
Gotcha.
I don't know why, but when I get into Denver is when I start really getting that thing coming back. I have it my whole life, you know, with my mom. My mom also was a chef in Mexico. She was working on restaurants. So the cuisine has been on my whole life, you know, like every day.
That's great.
So I think that's why I get it. And till I get here is when I decide, okay, I studied this, I know about this, I have my heritage cuisine, and people really at the beginning was pushing me a little bit about why you don't do this, why you don't open a business, why your food tastes different, why? I said because mine, maybe because my recipes are different, like from my family.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not, you cannot find those recipes in the books.
That's
and
right.
I said, sometimes we don't have a recipe writing. We just cook. So I cook whatever I saw and whatever I have here, and really whatever I have here.
Yes. Let's talk about that right now because I think it's so important. It's exactly that. There's a couple things that I think are interesting in what you're saying. One is that you have this background in it. Your mother as well was a chef. I really want to know, like, when you're cooking to feed somebody, it's emotional for you. Talk about the importance of that. What story are you trying to tell? Are you trying to connect people to your mother, to your abuelita, to Mexico City, to your heritage? Is that what you're trying to express through a simple dish like a taco? Is that what you're trying to communicate?
Yes. I really try to communicate first my love, my feelings, my culture. When I am cooking, even just a simple steak taco, in my head, in my heart, in my eyes, I have like, okay, how I will eat this taco in Mexico City. So you know that's the way I really cook, even every day, or when I am trying to make a new dish to sell on my catering business. I always think about that, my family. So I think customers are like my family, part of my family.
Yes. Was it a challenge at first? Because when you came here, look, let's just call it like it is. Mexican food for a lot of time in this country was turned into American food with Mexicans in the kitchen and some Mexican names kind of on the menu, but it wasn't truly authentic. When people say Mexican food, they think of one thing. Mexico is as diverse as, you know, the food culture is like China, and I think of like in Indonesia, like these countries, these cultures that are so massive, and the food of like Yucatan or Jalisco or Oaxaca are as different as French, Italian, and German food. Like they can be that different. So talk about that a little bit. Was it a challenge? Did you take the challenge as an opportunity for you to push through and showcase your culture? Just give us a little bit of that, of your understanding of Mexican cuisine in America.
I decided to stand up for my culture, my cultural cuisine, because I was dealing when I got here, the same as you says, I hear enchiladas. My mom also is from Oaxaca. kind of the most traditional towns. So for me, the enchiladas are with mole. And in Mexico City, we eat enchiladas with red chile. That is okay. I've been eating both two enchiladas. But then I get here and I find some kind of a strange chile, and they said this is one tomatillo enchiladas. And I was like, oh, we call it entomatadas, no enchiladas. And in this journey, I am trying, kind of teaching my customers my dishes, how I call it, how I made them, why I call it that way, or what that means to me to do it that way. So yes, for me it's a challenge for people to recognize some of my dishes. One other example can be the gorditas. In Mexico City, we eat the gorditas handmade, and it's already stuffed inside with whatever we want to put it. And sometimes we fry them, and the other times we do it just in the flat top. When I do it, and it's in a public vending, people told me, "Oh, you're making pupusas," and I says, "No, I'm making gorditas."
Different country.
Yes, I said, but looks the same. I said, no, it's not the same, because also the dishes inside the pupusas is completely different as the stuffing that I put it in my gorditas. So
one of my grandmothers is also from Mexico City, and so Thanksgiving and Christmas time we would always have some American meal stuff, and then we would always have tamales that she would make, and for breakfast she would make chalupas for breakfast, and sometimes she made gorditas as well. And I remember at the time the Taco Bell Chihuahua commercials were really famous, and I was like, oh, we're making these Taco Bell dishes. And then she made them. I was like, this is the most amazing thing that I could ever imagine. Yet the name chalupa, the name gorditas had been taken by Taco Bell and turned into this thing that had nothing to do with Mexican culture at all, and then mocked them by having this cute, adorable, and hilarious Chihuahua. Don't get me wrong, but this Chihuahua now represented the Mexican people. It was totally crazy to me. And so I'm glad that you got to mention gorditas. I'm glad that came about, because that is truly a part of your culture.
Yeah.
And you're trying to stand up for it, which I think is very important. Let's talk about Kamal. Kamal very much is standing up for culture. It's also standing up for women. So give people really quick who don't know exactly what the Kamal Heritage Food Incubator actually is and what's their mission.
Comal, that you mentioned, is a heritage food incubator, but most of that, I would say Comal comes and opens to make people feel like they can make their dream come true. That's really, really important, because was a group of ladies that we was working before Comal's open, trying to see how we can make it work to open our own business. But we find out about many, many things that we couldn't open the business. And in that time is when Comals, all these Comals start coming. They contact us and we have a meeting. And I would say in 4 months, they says, "Are you ready to open, Comal?" And I was like, what, when? But really comes and to people to tell them that everything comes when needed, because Comal really opens in the right time. 3 years ago.
So I think 3 years ago that Kamal opened in the taxi district of Denver. And so Kamal takes women, immigrants from different countries, heavily focused on South America, Central America, and very much in Mexico. Also, I've met women from the Middle East as well that are cooking their dishes and bringing their culture to bear, and then also teaching them not only just how to cook the food and present the food in a way kind of through the model of people being able to order the food and eat at Kamal. However, the back end of teaching them about the business, I think is so important. And so Kamal has amazing food. I can literally see the taxi building from right here. Amazing food. And if you're ever in Denver, go check it out. Absolutely. However, the food is less important to me, less impactful, less powerful than the women, and seeing the women there being empowered to create, to share their culture and their cuisine, their skill and their talent, and then be able to go and do their own business, I think is absolutely one of the most important missions that we can have. And you are a product of that work, because you now have La Catrina Grill You
Yeah.
started your own business, the American dream. The 18-year-old girl at culinary school in Mexico City now has her own business in Denver, Colorado, and you're feeding our community by teaching us your community, your culture. It's the most amazing story I could ever imagine. Talk about you now being a business owner, the joy of it, how crazy and challenging it is, I'm sure. Like, give us a little bit of you now having like a Katrina Grill.
I opened La Katrina Grill exactly kind of same time that Comal's opened. Because of that reason, I really want to have a starting together, like learn with them and open my business at the same time. And I was really very supportive for Comal, letting me do that. And I was very excited about going there and see other ladies there that works there. We really start with Raimunda, Dolores, Paola. We was a lot of girls there, very excited to show our culture. That was the part that was making me more happier. Like it's not just about cooking at home, is showing other persons what we cook at home and why we cook at home, that dish, or what that dish means to me. So, and to them also. And at the beginning, yes, we start with some Latin American ladies, most of them from El Salvador and from Mexico. And little later, after Comas opens, other persons comes from Middle Eastern that I love them food too. It's really amazing how we can connect each other. At the beginning, the language is a barrier, but I think the food connects us. We don't need a language when we are cooking.
What you just said is one of the most important things. In this time of turmoil, and there's a lot happening with social justice and racial inequality, and we know what's happening in the streets of a lot of cities. It is devastating. Yet what you just said is the most important thing that I can imagine. I think that if you sit down at a table and have a meal with somebody, have food and drink that represents them as a community, as a people, as an individual, as a country, as a heritage, you may not always agree on things. You may like this more than that. You may not always be coming from the exact same place, yet there's no way that you could ever hate somebody who has cooked a dish that they learned to cook from their grandmother. There's just no way. You always will find a moment of love for that person because you've sat at the table and you've had that experience. So I think it's so important, the work that you're talking about. And so just maybe a couple more seconds. Anybody at La Katrina Grill that you want to highlight and share? We always love being introduced.
La Katrina Grill is really a family business, I would say, because my daughter, when I have a catering, my daughter works for me as a staff buffet. My son works for me as a prepping. Like, for example, in this journey, like with the COVID, I have to deliver some box lunches already pre-packed. And, it's hard to hire people to do it. So it's really my business. La Katrina is a family business. So we work together, the three of us. Also, I am a grandmother. My grandson is just 4 months. So he was even watching me doing some paperwork.
And you're not only creating a business, you're creating a legacy now that at some point your grandchildren have an opportunity that you've helped create, that Kamal helped, that La Katrina helped. I think that this industry has helped to flourish. So I really appreciate sharing the story. It's one of the most important stories. And it's the story, it's so personal to you. It's also a story that many others have. And the more that we hear those stories, the more that we have food from people who have these stories, the better off our industry can be, because we can all kind of flourish together. So thank you so much for taking some time. Thank you for being on the show, Sylvia.
Yeah. And I would like to mention also about the Comal mission is always to support the ladies. So I forget to mention something very important about that. I think I couldn't make it if Comal wasn't supporting me economically too. Because the other part of Comal is when you work there, you get paid for going there and learn and show your culture. That is amazing. I always see programs that you pay something to learn, and here they pay you to go and learn. And I couldn't support my family without that help.
Such important work. Thank you for highlighting that, Sylvia. I really appreciate you sharing your story with us.
Yeah, thank you. And don't forget to stop by this coming Tuesday. We have the reopening of Comal. So
Yes.
check out the Facebook page, Instagram, and all of those social medias.
I like it. You are a savvy operator now. Make sure you get the plug in, get people over to Taxi. You've got all of the tools. I'm really grateful to have had you on the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And last but not least, our headliner, the one and only Debbie Gold, a mentor of mine early on when I was a punk 23-year-old line cook, took me under her wing and learned so much, and the relationship has continued. And I'm so grateful to have you on the show, Debbie.
Oh, well, thank you for having me, and congratulations to you. And I have to say, it's been great to reconnect with you and see what you've been up to.
Yes, and you have done an amazing job of what is so important to us, acknowledging our unsung hospitality heroes, just acknowledging each other across the industry, because it's so easy to get caught up in the minutia, the day-to-day grind, but thinking about the people that impact us is so important. And I'm so thankful that you've done a lot of that. Multiple people have been on our show and continue to be guests into the future because you said, you know what, you should talk to this person. They're great. And that's all I need. You are absolutely right. They're great. So we're going to talk a little bit about Chicago, your home city. Then we met in Kansas City, where you really put yourself on the map. And then now back in Chicago, you and Amy Morton doing amazing work with Found Kitchen and Stolp Island and the Barn. But I want to go all the way back to Chicago and Debbie growing up. Talk about the hospitality bug. When did it catch you? Where were you? Give us a little bit of that background.
I always like to cook. My mom cooked for the family, so it wasn't a passion of hers. Same for my dad. It was nobody's passion, but for me, when I started out, there was no internet, and I'd get Bon Appetit and Food and Wine, and I'd sit there and I'd look at all the recipes, and I'd go, Mom, I want to make this, and never liked to make, cookies or cakes out of a box. So it's just really, growing up, I guess, it's funny, not too long ago, my family was together and my mom was like, you always knew what you wanted to do. And I guess I never really thought about that. I just always loved cooking. So I tried to figure out how to be noticed, because when I was looking in the 80s, there were very few women in the industry, and you have to make yourself stand out. And so that's what I had to do. I tell the story of one of the first jobs that I applied for. The chef looked at me. I was in college. I was looking for a summer line cook job. And the chef looked at me, and, you go for an interview, you look nice, did my makeup. I'm a little person. And he was like, you'll break a nail if you go back there. And I was pissed. Yeah.
Oh, and for those who don't know, Debbie, that is not the right way to approach Debbie Gold. You may be smaller in stature, but you are big in power and personality. Don't get it twisted, anybody. So you were very much had to break into the boys club, and you were determined. And there's so many stories that you have about just the different ways that exactly that, the break a nail story, the this and that. It was clear that you just were not going to let anybody or anything stop you from that goal. Give us a moment, maybe fast forward us a little bit, when it was like, oh, now I'm a chef. Like, it really clicked for you. You had the opportunity. You put something on a menu, anything like that. What is that moment for you that you think back on?
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. And you mentioned me working with Amy Morton right now. She actually was the first one to give me a chef position. She had a restaurant called Mirador in downtown. And that was the first time that I got to create what I wanted to create and put it on a plate. And, that one feeling, it's an art. And what's different than an artist who paints or sculpts or draws is the reaction to what we do is immediate. You put it down and immediately people see it, and then when they taste it, it's either they liked it or they don't like it. And
right, it doesn't grow on you.
No, you don't have time, and the feedback doesn't come a couple months later. It's immediate, and if they don't like it, you're definitely going to hear it.
Yes.
So that was and the good feeling comes when people like what you're doing and they want more, and when you start building your reputation. The hard part is, when somebody goes, well, this just tasted like dog food, and you're like,
brutal.
When's the last time you ate dog food?
Yep. That's right. So I want to talk about your team right now with the group of restaurants that you have in Chicago, in Evanston specifically. And I want to set the table for people. When I was 23, I came to work at 40 Sardines in Overland Park, Kansas City for you. You were off James Beard Award, up for, multiple other awards. And I was like, I'm leveling up. It was very clear to me I was leveling up. And that opportunity came about from Tim Doolittle. Big shout out, a friend of both of ours, really talented chef, and Family Meal. This was something that has stuck with me, and we talked about it on your full episode of the podcast, and I'll talk about it again and again and again. Family Meal was something so important to you that if somebody just called it in and put up a crap dish for Family Meal, you let them have it more than if they overcooked a fish on the fish station during service. It was almost more important to you that we take care of each other in that moment.
Right.
You also forced us out of the kitchen, go sit down or even stand up, but you are going to break bread with your team tonight. And those moments, it was important to me, and it meant a lot. And I think it had a huge impact on the success of that business. So take me to now and talk about the importance of kind of that dynamic for you, Family Meal, or just the culture you're trying to create, and kind of how that's playing out in your restaurant group today.
We're a team. And if you don't feel that you're a team, then, I think, the culture wouldn't be right in your kitchen, because everybody, no matter what their position, has the same job description in my book. Everybody's job is to please the guest, period. And if you're not happy in your job and you're not respected in your job, you're not going to do a good job, which is going to reflect on, and it's the same, the dishwashers, the busboy, the host, everybody's got the same job description. And I'm not motivated to do my best when you're yelled and screamed at or you're belittled. That doesn't do anybody any good. And if you don't have enough respect for the team around you to make employee meal that's edible and that's good, that, you know what I mean? It's like, what are you doing there? And it's just, if you're feeding the servers and you get a crappy meal, in a sense, it's like, how are they going to feel when they have to go talk to the guest about the food you're serving? Whether they order it off the menu or it was what you ate for employee meal, it's got to be good, And if you don't respect the people that you work with, you major problem right there, in my book.
I could not agree. The opportunity for success downstream from that interaction is diminished. It absolutely is. And I think that's important. Some restaurants are open straight through the day and can't necessarily shut down between lunch and dinner, or aren't the kind of place that's only open for dinner. So everybody sitting down together may not be feasible for everyone. However, the care and attention to your team is going to empower them to be the utmost hospitalitarians when it comes to the guests. So I think that's super important. And between you buying into that on the kitchen side, and Amy absolutely building a career just like you have on truly being high touch hospitality, I think is important. So let's talk about the team. And me, name drop as many humans as possible. Who are some of the people now? Because this is a challenging time. And I think we need to triple down on what you're talking about. We need to invest in our people emotionally, financially, more than ever. How do you see that playing out now? And who are some of the people that are just so damn inspiring in this moment through all this turmoil?
I have a little crew right now because we're not open 100%. And I've got 3 people, Levante, Yoko, and Jose, who are with me. I tried to bring them back as soon as possible, give them a few hours if I couldn't, spread it around. And I have to say, they've come in, they worked really hard, and it's changing times. And I've been changing my menu every week. And, it's like, what can I do? How can I do this? And either once or twice a week, we're doing 200 dinners for a local shelter here in Evanston. And everybody pitches in from the front of the house. I've got Kathleen and Tara and Fred just to make it happen. And one of my things is, with the cooks, I'm like, hey guys, did you put salt and pepper on that? Did you do this? I want the food to be good for those 200 dinners, just as I want it to be good for anybody else that might get food out of our kitchen. It's just, everybody's kind of a blank sheet to me. I don't care your background, your color, your anything. It really doesn't matter. You're a person. We all like to eat good food. One of the things I always say to cooks, how to try to push them to be the best is, if you take a salad, and even if it's like $5-6 salad, really simple and nothing spectacular, it could be just iceberg tomato and shredded carrots. If you get like soggy lettuce or mushy carrots, $5 is too expensive for that. And I wouldn't eat it. If I'm making a plate of food and I wouldn't eat it, I shouldn't be putting it out. And either should anybody else. So I want everybody to get good food, no matter the reason they're eating it from my kitchen. It better be good.
It doesn't matter if it's foie gras or an iceberg salad. It's still food that's meant to touch people emotionally and then also to nurture them. And in this time, this comfort food has been a fascinating concept because there's no foie gras and caviar right now. There's just how do we truly take care of each other and feed each other, which I think is so important. Any last thoughts as we kind of wrap this up? And thank you to you and to everybody. I mean, our full lineup of guests for 100 episodes of Best Served Live. Any parting thoughts to kind of take us out, make the world a better place, Debbie?
I just think people need to care about each other and think about the other person. It's just that simple. And my motto, I've always treated people the way I wanted to be treated. So if you don't respect people, then, there's too much going on and the negative energy just doesn't help anybody. So I just try to get along with people.
I could not agree more. Really, really appreciate you kind of lending your voice, the support that you showed me personally, the support that you showed Best Served Podcast. So many guests have already been on, again, that, you've connected with us. And I think it's important. The acknowledgement is strong in you. I think you're always looking to bring more people into the fold, and we need more leadership like that. So Debbie Gold, thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, thank you for all the kind words, and congratulations again, and stay safe and keep going. Keep pushing. Will do. Cheers. Cheers.
Everybody, that is a wrap on the 100th episode of Best Served Live. I could not be more excited for all of you to become a part of this community, for all the guests that were a part of this. It really, really matters. The amount of new humans in hospitality that we got introduced to, it matters. Acknowledgement matters. And so take an opportunity after watching this, create a post, use the hashtag Unsung Hospitality Heroes. Tell a story, show us a picture, a video of somebody that when you showed up to work or show up to work today, you're just so excited because that person is also working. There are so many people whose stories matter, yet they go unheard. And I think it makes a big, big difference. So let's do more of that. Rock Corey, behind the scenes. Come in here. There we go. And speaking of acknowledgement, Rock Corey, a.k.a. Corey Nelson, Betsy Cummings, a.k.a. the Hardy Mama, are in the house here at Safta Restaurant. Very grateful for their work. All right, you guys are done. So important to have this team, for us to be able to come out here, support the hospitality industry, the community in Denver specifically, to be here at Safta Restaurant. And for Liliana Meyers here, Alon Shaya, you saw him. That's Alon Shaya, the one and only, running back and forth with to-go bags, like trying to feed the community. I think it really matters. So I want everybody to take this moment to acknowledge each other. It really does matter. Thank you so much. For me, 100 episodes of Best Served Live. unbelievable. We have not skipped a day since March 18th, and I'm truly grateful for the opportunity to share more stories with you. Cheers.